am. I've been feeling like doing a video like this for some time here, and I'm just doing this kind of on a leading. I know I have not had the time to get the videos up that I'd like to get up. I want to get in depth on a lot of things, but life is just not allowing me the time to do that right now. But just the other day, occasionally I'll search on YouTube for Christian Universalism, just the generic, Christian Universalism, just to see what's out there. Even though I really don't like the term universalism because it's just gotten a bad rap and most people really don't actually know the word, or you know what I mean? Like universalism, all roads lead to God. Well, anyway, in Christian Universalism, it's kind of a really loose title anyway. But what I wanted to do in this video is advise y'all if you're wondering where do I go to take a deep dive. Like, I just got into this. I don't have anything more than just a few YouTube videos of people talking about what this is, and there's conflicting ideas and different opinions. And you want a book to read or a few books. Well, you come to the right place. Now, I know there's some other places, some other YouTube channels you can look into, and I'll mention those. But for now, if you want my recommendation, if you are newer to this whole Christian Universalism family, I don't know, whatever, if you saw the light and you need some solid biblical education, and you want a running start. I recently moved, so I'm missing a box of books. I'm a little disappointed because a lot of my really highly recommended books are in there, but I mean, I don't need them anymore because I've gone through them all numerous times. I'll find the box, it's probably in the garage somewhere, but the books that I have here, along with a couple that I'll mention that are not here, honestly, like if you want to take a deep dive into this, I think book number 1, top of your list, first book you should read on the subject, Universalism, the prevailing doctrine of the Christian Church in its first 500 years, by John Wesley Hansen. This book was originally, written in the 1800s. I think John Wesley Hansen was a preacher in Georgia. I don't remember exactly. It's actually been probably a little over a year since I personally have been through this book completely, and I will continue to go back. This is one of 2 books, honestly, that I continue to go back to and reference. And like I got this copy, and I have a total of 3 copies, I think. Yeah, one here, one here, one here, and I have a 4th copy out there floating around the house. That copy is like super tore up and bent up, and like doesn't sit right. By the way, sorry for the video shaking around. I'm just holding on to this. Next up, number 2 on the list of most highly recommended books if you're getting started in Christian Universalism and you need a solid foundation, because obviously a lot of Christians that come into Christian Universalism are coming from the church. You're going through what maybe you're heard of the deconstruction movement, or maybe you're like me, where you're literally just a typical non-denominational or fundamentalist or evangelical, and you just had the scales fall from your eyes in the spirit, and you're starting to see scriptures differently, and you want to find out you're not crazy, and there's actually people that teach on this stuff. Well, this, to be completely honest, I mean, it's hard to say like which one should be number 1, the Universalism. See, the Universalism, this book, The Prevailing Doctrine of the Christian Church in its first 500 years, this is more of a history book. And this will give you some, basically, it's like if you're in an argument with anybody in your Christian camp about what the gospel is, and you know, because one of the things a new Christian Universalist will come across is coming up against people in your Christian circle. They're like calling you deceiver, you're off your rails, or you're coming up with new age crap, you know? Well, this right here will tell you that's not the case. This book is not a history lesson, but it goes through the scriptures in depth, and it goes through basically Calvinism and Arminianism. Calvinism being God predetermined everything. Some were predestined to fry in their own fat for eternity, and some were predestined to live with God in bliss forever. And then there's the Arminian version, or the Arminian flavor, where Jesus is in fact the Savior of the world, as long as they choose His love and gift. Otherwise, they're going to fry in their own fat for all eternity. But it's up to the people. God offered it to everyone. And obviously, with Christian Universalism being the ultimate winner of the breakdown by not defying the love of God or the sovereignty of God, saying that God is love and that He will chase you down, even if it takes eternity, and God is sovereign, ultimately determining who gets saved, as opposed to letting it rest on the shoulders of men, dead men in their sins, to make the decision of. Now, there's a few other books in here. Honestly, like here's a book. This is honestly, like, if you are not super interested in heavy theology, heavy Christian history, you just want a really easy read that just mic drops it from every angle, this is it right here. George Sarris, Heaven's Doors. Talk about breaking it all down in layman's terms. It's kind of a thick book, but to be completely honest, like, it is, well, I can't do this with my hand like this. If I have to order these 1, 2, 3, this is, I guess, number 3. But I'm going to tie it with a book that I don't have here as far as like the order goes. But this honestly is probably, they're all kind of mic drop books. But if, like I said, if you're not looking for a super deep dive into church history or a super deep dive into theology and the breakdown of Calvinism and Arminianism and why Universalism is the only one that really makes sense and all, this one is more the layman's terms. This guy does touch on all of the stuff. Honestly, he actually mentions both of these books in this book. Like, he touches on, the important points. But, well, okay, I'm not going to get into it any further than that. Heaven's Doors by George Sarris. The Inescapable Love of God by Thomas Talbot. Personally, I appreciate Christian mysticism. It's not all about religion. It's not all about head theology. When you get into this flow, you're gonna want to read things from various streams. Once you kind of get a little bit more solid in your understanding and belief, because when you go from regular westernized American Christianity to Christian Universalism, it kind of feels like the rug got pulled out from under you and you need something to stand on. Well, that's what I'm recommending these 3 books for, because you're gonna realize, like, you still have something to stand on. You're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know what? One book that's not in here that I'm gonna throw in. A More Christlike God by Brad Jersak. That is a good one. That's not in here because that book got passed around the house and passed around to other people and read and reread so many times, I think it might have actually completely fallen apart. I don't know if I even still have the book we had. We've only ever had one copy of that. A lot of times, like, I'll pick up multiple copies of books. For some reason, I just never picked up another copy of that because I actually got it on Audible and listened to it 1,000 times, along with a lot of other Brad Jerzak's books. But yeah, A More Christlike God. Now, personally, no offense, Brad, if you ever hear this or see this video, I don't know why you would. I'm kind of small fry. But More Christ-like Way, to be honest with you, didn't really do anything for me. But whatever, good read. A More Christ-like God, that is, is right up there with these three books, in my personal opinion. It could be the first book you read if you're kind of in transition, or if you need to hand a book to somebody to help them understand the mental gymnastics you're kind of going through in transitioning from the non-denominational or fundamentalist or even Catholic or any kind of Christianity that involves hell as an option for the unbeliever. That book I recommend it. Like I said, if you're having trouble either wrapping your head around the concepts of God's nature and character, as like you've thought about the problem of evil and you've thought about God, how could he, have this, God is love, but God is just, and all the, it's just, there's so much conflict or contradiction in God's nature and character in typical Western Christianity. That's the book to read if you're struggling with that, or if somebody is struggling to understand why you have decided to come to the Christian Universalist camp because you just can't unsee certain things of God's nature. Moving on. Just gonna go on a side note here real quick. If you haven't, seriously, if you haven't, come on. Really? If you haven't yet, pretty much everyone in the world has, what are you waiting for? Okay? Nothing to be scared of. It's a fiction novel, but if you're on the road to Christian Universalism and you want some real depth in your relationship with God, there's this book, and then there's a book called The Shack Revisited. I have never had a hard copy. I got it on Audible. You can actually, I actually would recommend going on YouTube, looking up, there's a conference called Revisiting the Shack or something like that. It's like a five series conference. It's probably 5 or 6 or 8 years old, 5 or 6 or 7 years old now, with Baxter Kruger and Paul Young. There's a wild story about how those two guys met after Baxter Kruger got his hands on a copy of this book and ended up meeting William Paul Young, the author. All right, next up, now we're kind of getting down there. I don't really have a lot more. Well, here's the thing. If you really want to take a deep dive now and take it to the next level, Ilaria Romelli, A Larger Hope. This book is look at how, this is a big book. All in all, you're looking at something that's over 200 pages, and she has basically spent her life researching the doctrine of the Apokatastasis, the restoration of all things according to the early church. She's pretty much the leader in this, in modern world historian camp, whatever, from a academic perspective. And she has I don't know what her big book is called, but it's like 1,000 pages. No joke. It's actually like 900 and some pages. It costs like $350 on Amazon. Where, I mean, that's literally an academic book. But yeah, this is kind of like the layman's version of that book, A Larger Hope. And then Robin Perry goes, so A Larger Hope, this one here, Ilaria Romelli, goes from Christian beginnings to Julian of Norwich, and then Robin Perry does A Larger Hope Part 2, basically from Julian of Norwich to to modern day Christianity, universal salvation. David Bentley Hart. Now here's a guy that I really don't care for as a character. Because, like, I have literally stopped, like, over the last few years, I've become less and less political. Like, I've stopped caring so much one way or the other about politics. Like, I have opinions. Who doesn't? But some people can't help themselves leaking some really strong political stances. And David Bentley Hart, he's a super flaming lib. And that's because he's a professor in academia. I don't know if it's because of that, but that's his world. So I don't really care. Honestly, he's probably the most of all authors out there on Christian Universalism. He's genius. Like, the dude speaks like half a dozen or more languages fluently. He knows the ancient languages and the ancient cultures. He's got a legit classical education. Something I think you really actually need if you're going to read the Bible and interpret it for yourself. Because you literally can't just pick up any Bible in any translation today and interpret it for yourself. You have to study history. Real history. History we don't get, Anyway. So David Bentley Hart. I don't have the book that I would recommend. The book that I would recommend is called That All Shall Be Saved by David Bentley Hart. I personally have this book as well, The Story of Christianity, a history of 2,000 years of the Christian faith. I haven't actually gone through this. I cracked it. I've maybe got let's see where it's dog-eared here. Maybe I'm a dozen pages in. But basically, I got through the first chapter. I got that basically just because he's an academic and dude knows how to write. And if you want a history book of the entire history of the church, put in a nutshell, this is going to have all of the important stuff. And it's going to be from the perspective of a Universalist. I keep looking at the wrong spot. You ever record yourself on your phone and you're like, your camera is over on that side, but you're like looking over here because your face is over there. Anyway, let's see what else we got in here, and we're going to wrap this up. John Crowder. Now, I followed that dude on YouTube for a long time. If you're just kind of trying to get out of the religious, the vicious religious circle, this is a good one. It's more of entertaining than anything else. Ditching religion for the joy of incarnation. How Gnostic dualism invaded the church, killed the party, and taught you the world was evil. It's actually pretty good. It's more personal. I think it's more entertaining than anything else, but you'll definitely learn some things. And let's see. Got this post-COVID cough that just decided to stick around for a few months. Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, so earlier I brought up I like mysticism. Well, The Roots of Christian Mysticism. I believe the author of this book, Oliver Clement, has an Eastern Orthodox background. Speaking of Eastern Orthodox, David Bentley Hart, that is his jam. He's Eastern Orthodox. And that is one flavor of Christianity that, you got about 350 million Eastern Orthodox, kind of like Catholicism, when you got like 1.1 billion around the world, or 1.5 billion, I don't know, but Eastern Orthodox Christianity is a massive denomination. There's at least 350 million, with the M, people in that flavor of Christianity. And one thing they don't have is a doctrine on hell. They don't have a doctrine on hell. Kind of surprising. If you're not familiar with the Eastern Orthodox Church, they're basically the Catholic Church, but in 1054, there was what was called the Great Schism, where the church split in two, 1054 AD. And that is where the Eastern Orthodox Church basically kind of stuck to their... They didn't change. They didn't mold and evolve. They stayed the same. They're the same to this day. In practice, in preaching, in tradition, everything. They're pretty much the same as, when they organized the church a few hundred years after Christ. Whereas the Catholics, we all know what happened there. They have this thing about the papacy, and every, few years or few generations, they'll add or subtract or change what their current belief system is, to degrees. It's like, not throwing Catholics under the bus, but, we all know what a non-Catholic thinks of a Catholic. But personally, I like, speaking of Catholics, in Christian Universalism, Richard Rohr. That's all I'm going to say. Just Google him. Richard Rohr. There's a book. He's got a lot of books. Tons of books. He's a Catholic. He is a Franciscan friar based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Or Santa Fe, New Mexico. Or somewhere in New Mexico. The Universal Christ. Honestly, that book, I got that on Audible a few years ago. And that book, if you like the mystical side of Christianity, and if you're more of a philosopher kind of type, or more, that book that's going to turn you sideways. You're going to like that book. The Universal Christ by Richard Rohr. And dude's got a lot more books. If you get on Audible, or if you go online, just look him up, see all his books. He's got a lot of books. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Sorry for the extremely low professional quality of the video here. Just sitting here holding my phone. Didn't want to go to the extent of setting up a tripod and a camera and a microphone and everything like that. Just in my messy office. My barely set up bookshelf. We just moved recently and missing half my books. But, there are people who are coming into this end times move of God. And their eyes are being opened up, and they're moving into this Christian Universalism, if you have to put a name on it. And honestly, like me, I was afraid of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because you go some directions, you start looking around, you start looking on YouTube, you start looking on Facebook, and you find some of these circles, the deconstruction movement. And a lot of people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and they're just going full on, leaving the church, leaving Christianity completely. They're just spiritualists. Their new name for God is Source. And Jesus was just like you and me, just an enlightened individual. So that's all BS, by the way. You are not God. I'm not God. We are in God. We are of God. We are one with God, but we are not God himself. The I am. You can say I am because you are you and I am me, but God is I am that I am. There is a distinct difference. You're one with God, but you're also distinct. You are you. You're made in the image and likeness of God. Keyword made. We're not going to get into the whole idea of reincarnation because I'm not sold on that idea. Now, granted, I have been studying and researching and hearing near-death experience testimonials for going on 2 years now. I've definitely heard well over 1,000. And reincarnation is a relatively common theme. People come back believing in that. People that were just regular old church folk, Christian folk, or atheists or agnostics or whatever. A lot of people come back, regardless of their history, believing that they had past lives and they relived, or we saw a few of them when they were on the other side and they came back and have some memories of them, whatever. I don't know. I honestly, my personal perspective at this point of all that is they were just experiencing somebody else's experience, because on the other side of the veil, we are all one. You are distinct, but you're so much one with the universal I am that you can experience someone else's experience as if you're them. You can't understand it from this side of the veil, but that is my explanation for the reincarnation thing. I don't think there's reincarnation. I think they're just experiencing someone else's experience, and they were only there for a short amount of time in light of all of eternity, so they didn't come back with the full understanding of everything. So anyway, that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. Jam that subscribe button, drop a like, throw a comment down below, and I'll be back for more. Taste and see that the Lord is good.